Hello everyone and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. Today we're talking about Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, Robert De Niro, and a ton of actors. It's quite a huge film.
Oh, yes.
It's huge both in production, size, and in length. It's about a 3.5 hour long film. And while the runtime can be felt, I believe every single second of the movie was fantastically well done. It's an incredible film. It's one of the best films of the year. And it really, I think, does a great job of choosing a perspective in which to tell the story that might not be the perspective you want to see it from, but will definitely get the message it's trying to tell you across, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're not going to spoil anything, but it all is a true story if you want to, look up what happens, the events. Or
There's a book, too, that it's based off of. Same name, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's kind of dive right into it.
Yeah.
Lily Gladstone, I think,
Phenomenal.
steals the movie. And it's a subdued performance, too. It's not like a very showy, there's not like an Oscar clip in the movie of where she gets to really, it's just every line on her face, every movement her eyes makes.
Yeah, the eyes.
She crushes this emotional, held back performance. And every time she's on screen, you're captivated by what she's doing. And she's acting up against heavy fucking hitters.
Yeah, I think this is one of her sort of first movie roles of this scale, and to have to share a majority of your screen time with Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, and at times be able to steal the scene from them by not even overacting, just acting, and just your presence on screen is something amazing, I think.
No, it's incredible. And not only that, Leonardo DiCaprio does a great job in the film as well. Robert De Niro, I thought this is the best performance from him I've seen in a while.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
I think it's going to be a very tight supporting actor race between him and Robert Downey Jr. from Oppenheimer.
Yeah. No, it was, and do not forget about Ryan Gosling, sir. He's gunning for it.
He
is gunning for it. Yes.
What a lineup.
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. But it's gonna be a great race this year. But diving back into the film, something that the movie does, and we're gonna not really spoil anything, but we're just gonna try to break down what we saw. Leonardo DiCaprio's character. I am a sucker for point of no returns in movies, where they're clearly taking advantage of what is just viewed as just a dumb idiot person. And there's a point in this film where this person has a chance to make a decision that if they decide to do this, there's no redeeming them. There's no going back to after that point. And when the decision gets made, the ramification of that decision at the end of the film was so character driven and well done, because most filmmakers would have had an explosion, not like an actual explosion, but an exploding acting moment of confrontation. And this confrontation was so quiet and so just direct to the bone that I was blown away by how, because I would not have done a scene like that. We're being vague, sorry. But I would have had a huge I would have given people their Oscar clips.
Yeah.
And the way that it was handled, I thought was so well done because it felt so real. It felt and I think a big message of this movie is about complacency, which is something I've seen with discourse online, which I hugely agree with. And if you want to get the message home about complacency and you have that confrontation scene, I think that was the perfect way to get that point across.
Yeah.
And the film has a particular ending as to how they wrap things up. I thought it was great. I know that there's some discourse on that, especially for, like I said, the point that they're trying to get across. I thought it ends in a similar way. I'm going to make a weird comparison here. It ends in a very similar way that Dunkirk does for me. And that part of the point of the story is that this is going to be forgotten in time. And so they wanted to take a way to show what's a great way to show that this story is about to be forgotten in time. And both do it very differently. But that being, my comparison stems from that just being the final thing you see in the film, is the point of these were forgotten in time.
I think the thing about the ending of this movie and the way it wraps up is I think it was a bold creative choice. And I think that there was a simpler way to do it that many movies in the past have done. And I appreciate... I was kind of jarred at first. It is a very jarring ending because it's just something you're just not expecting. But the more I've kind of sat with it, the more I have leaned more positive on it than initially. Because when you sit and think about it and the real world implications of it, and this being a movie about real events, the personableness of it, it sort of, I think, served as a way to almost take you out of the movie as this sort of reminder of this is real facts, this is real people, this was a movie you watched, and remember that.
Yeah.
And I think the way it's done does serve that purpose, and I think that was of a very good choice on behalf of Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
And going back to the performances as well, I think, like you said, sort of that big blow-up scene, I really don't think that a lot of actors in this movie had Oscar clips, if you'll call it. I think DiCaprio has like one freak out.
Yeah.
But the nuance, I think, in everyone's performance. And I wasn't a big fan of DiCaprio in the movie. I'm really not a big DiCaprio guy, which I've talked about before.
Any fans of the show know.
Yes.
How
but
you feel?
I think that it was a good performance. I felt like he was not really doing anything that we haven't seen him do before in other movies. Whereas I think he has much more range as an actor. But that being said, the nuance of the performance, because it's really this sort of disastrous relationship, right, that you see in the trailers, and everyone's out for blood and for money and everything like that. And there were times where I do believe throughout the movie, like, he does have genuine love for Lily Gladstone.
Yeah.
His character. But when you're watching the things he's doing, you're like, it's not love.
Yeah, and that was kind of to my point of like, there's a point of no return.
Yes.
Where you're kind of like, is he just dumb or like what's going on?
Yeah.
But then there is a point. I don't want to spoil what the point is, but there is a moment where it's like, okay, if this happens, there's no return for this character.
Yeah, because they're like through a lot of the movie, I'm like, he's being awful. I know this, but for some reason, like I couldn't scratch this feeling of I think he genuinely does love her, and is just at this will of other people.
Yeah.
And then and I think maybe that was the point of you're reaching this. You're watching this character self-destruct, and it reaches this point of no return where you realize, oh no, he's just a bad person.
Yeah.
Awful person.
They're all awful.
Yeah, no, and it's such a sad thing that it's based on true performance. But the performance and I think the care that went into telling the story, and I think that there could be a lot of mixed reactions to that online. Just the way the story was told, who the main characters are, and the focus.
Right.
But I think that also there's been some wonderful sentiments by several Osage people who's spoken out on the movie. Especially, was he a consultant?
No, there was I highly encourage everyone to watch this. There was a
I'll put a link in the description because it's a great sentiment.
There was a great view on the movie by, I believe he was the person who helped teach the Osage language to the actors.
Okay.
That was his role on the film.
Language consultant.
Yes. And he gives a very nuanced thought on the film where I'm summarizing. I highly encourage you to go watch the whole thing, where he basically just says, I do wish that this film was told from the Osage perspective and it was about Osage people, but with that being said, I think it would take an Osage filmmaker for that to happen. And, the opportunities of them getting a movie is a conversation for another day. But for somebody who is not Osage, and the reason why they chose to change that dynamic for that reason, I think represented the Osage people well. And, the movie is about, and he goes on to kind of talk about the complacency thing. Yeah. And it's a really, really, I highly encourage everyone to watch it.
Because while the performances do focus heavily on Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Lily Gladstone's Molly is the heart of the movie. And I think that the Osage people are also the heart of the movie. I still feel like the focus is on them as well. Like they were...
Yes. I mean, especially Lily Gladstone and the relationship with the sisters is kind of the beating heart of the movie.
Yes.
Like, it's, this movie is designed for the audience to figure out what's going on relatively early. And when you realize it and you're just like, I'm about to watch these events unfold, like now that I know what's happening. And it's heartbreaking. Yes. Like the whole thing. It's terrible. But it's helmed in such a way that I don't think... let me just say I'm happy that Martin Scorsese made this, because I feel like lesser filmmakers would not have been able to do a good job.
There's a lot of we keep saying the word nuance, but there's not a better word for it. The technical care that went into it.
Oh, yes.
The willingness to take the risks and the swings that the movie does, I think, is reflective of a matured filmmaker.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like something of this scale and this magnitude and this weight of emotion, I don't think would have been reflective of someone right out of the gate.
I agree. And also, I'm really happy that this movie got an A- cinema score.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, cinema score is a pretty accurate representation of the general movie-going audience and how they feel about a film, because they get people coming right out of the theater, random people. And Scorsese has a weird relationship with cinema score, and his movie's not doing well. Like, The Wolf of Wall Street has a C, which is mind-blowing to me. And even, like, Shutter Island, I think, doesn't have a great one. And it's like, I think those are masterpiece movies. Mm-hmm. But, like, I'm glad... My point is, I'm glad that even the general movie-going audience is resonating well with the story.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Especially at a film that's 3.5 hours in length, which was just going to turn off a lot of people regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, typically when I try to say a movie is too long, because you do feel the runtime, I try to follow it up with, and you could have removed X. I don't know what you could have removed from the film. Every single shot and second had a purpose to me when watching the film.
Yeah, no, I think everything does tie together. Mm-hmm. It's just... I think the runtime being felt is more of a pacing issue than a removal of things issue. I just think scenes could have been...
Yeah. Yeah, only real complaints I have is the movie loses steam a bit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it picks up. I'm not going to say the point it picks up because it's a major spoiler, but the movie does pick up and finishes strong. Stepping down from the seriousness into just... No one does sudden murder like Martin Scorsese. Mm-hmm. Like... Goodfellas, Casino, even Wolf of Wall Street, this film, just you're watching it and just like, bam, someone dies.
Yeah.
But with this film and the other films, that was kind of used for a moment of fun or even just a quick shock or pace. This film, it's used for dread. Mm-hmm. And it's so rare in his films. The king of sudden murder. His films typically use that as like a action piece or like it's keeping like Goodfellas is what made the movie fun. This film, it happens frequently, and each time it just hurts you more. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of shows, like you're saying, like one of the most mature filmmakers ever, who's been doing it for decades, would be able to pull off a trope that he has in a completely different emotional space.
Yes.
Which I thought was really interesting to see.
No, definitely. He does take sort of the things that you do typically expect of a Martin Scorsese film, and he is able to utilize that to evoke different emotions, which is very cool to see.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the film. I think you like the film as well.
Very much.
It's definitely one of the best films of the year. I highly recommend seeing it. I also recommend not drinking anything 6 hours before. And the thing that sucks, I don't know what you could miss in the bathroom, you know? Like
that's fair.
It's tough.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go and you have to use the bathroom, make sure go in shifts so that somebody can tell you what you missed.
Yeah.
That it's prime for that. But yes, we highly recommend the movie. What did you think of Killers of the Flower Moon? Please let us know in the comments below, and we'll catch you on the next review.